and I'm opening it up. Welcome, everyone.
We were running on something, and we didn't stay forever, but it's all we wanted. You were somewhere, simple things, and now we're searching for the fire, tripped in kerosene. I've been loving more, living lives off of highs and lows, success. Couldn't get enough.
Hope everyone out there is dancing. Love that. Got a little air guitar going.
When you're free spirits, can you hear it calling? 'Cause I don't wanna live now, I don't let me go. Is this heaven or Armageddon? I'll be getting high with you to watch the ending. We were driving down a memory, a cemetery full of bottles and a liquor bleed. When you're loving more, caring less, it's the highs and lows, but no clear. We wanted it all then. Oh, never running out. Be free spirits, can you hear it calling? Oh, it's all or nothing when you're free spirits, can you hear it calling? 'Cause I don't wanna live now, no, tell me when you
All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us. I really appreciate you coming. And before I invite Myrna onto this Zoom stage, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Jamie Lasowitz and my pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the coordinator for the Center for Women and Gender Equity and Center for Violence Prevention and Education at BGSU, as well as the one sending you all of the emails in preparation for this event. So over the last week, we have had the pleasure of having Myrna with us for 3 other workshops, and we have been grateful to explore, learn, and grow within her presence. And tonight, I do not doubt, will also add on to that. Tonight, Myrna will be here with us tonight to share her keynote, Your Body is a Beautiful Work in Progress, Our Incredible, Beautiful Bodies. This event tonight will wrap up a series of sessions over the last week. However, the CWGE has a lot of great programming coming up for the month of March, which is Women's History Month. This March, we'll be focusing specifically on intersections, margins, and centers when looking at women and history. Please make sure that you stay in touch for upcoming programs and you follow the CWGE on Instagram. Our handle is BGSU.CWGE. And without any further ado, I would like to introduce to you all the Myrnavator.
Hi, everybody, and thank you so much to you, Jamie, for putting this all together. We've been in communication for many months, and so to have this be the culmination is really exciting, and I have had a great time hanging out with all different sorts of people and different constituencies from Bowling Green, and so it's been really, really an honor to be with y'all and to be in community, especially today. As Jamie said, my name is Myrna Valerio, also known as the Myrnavator, and I use she, her pronouns. I am an ultra marathoner, an author, an adventurer, a mom of a 17-year-old who is in the midst of a very, very intense quarter, because our classes are quarter long here, of APUS, and so he only surfaces for food and air, and also money to buy Bitcoin, because that's a thing right now. Right? So I'm a former educator of 18 years. I am an equity and an inclusion practitioner, among many, many other things. What a weird time this is, right? We are in the midst of social strife, renewed political instability. And when I say renewed, I mean in the last 3 days, right? And oh, yeah, a pandemic, right? I want to take a moment to acknowledge that we've been experiencing a lot over the past year. We've been thrown a lot. With food insecurity, housing insecurity, unemployment, changes in our daily lives, changes in the way we do school. We are stressed out, we're anxious. Some of us are experiencing depression and isolation. We're all in many respects experiencing some level of trauma. And this shows up in a lot of different ways for everyone, psychologically, emotionally, socially, physiologically. And remember that our bodies don't exist apart from whatever's going on in our world. And everything is connected. Everything is part of a larger whole. But I also wanted to acknowledge and honor the space that we're in today and the ability that we have, even if it's virtual, to be together tonight. Cultivating healthy and positive body image is something that is very, very near and dear to my heart. And it's also a very big part of what I do professionally, both explicitly and kind of by default. I believe that our bodies are beautiful and strong. They are beautiful works in progress. And they are capable of many things. And all too often, we don't believe this, we don't trust this, or acknowledge this. And sometimes other folks don't believe this about us because of how we've been socialized and trained to think of what a body should look like, or how a body should appear, what a body should be able to do, and who should inhabit that body. When I introduced myself, I said that I'm an ultra marathoner, which is a person who does marathon distances and above. So when you think about the words runner or marathoner or athlete, there's certain images that might come to mind. So what do you think? What words? And use the chat for this. I'm a very interactive person, so I love when people, put stuff in the chat. So what words come to mind when you envision what a runner is or an athlete is? I'm going to ask you to be very honest. What words come to mind? Skinny, motivated, determined, muscular, lean, long legs, thin, athletic build, lean, thin, fit, lanky, muscular, and lean, dedicated. I love that. So as some people said, you must be thin, svelte, muscular, tall. I'm going to add chiseled. And then in terms of what an athlete should do or try to do, they should be fast, they should be agile, they should be light on their feet, they should have incredible range of motion, they should be graceful, they should be able to lift heavy but not too heavy if I'm a woman, they should be able to jump high, they should be able to pivot quickly. Also, an athlete should try to win things, or at least try to win things, and be competitive and constantly try to one up themselves or others. These are just a couple of thoughts that might come to mind when we envision the word athlete. So I am not thin, and I haven't been since the second grade when we were really experiencing poverty. I am not fast or really muscular, except for my calves, which are on point. I'm just going to say that. And I definitely don't win things. I don't even try to win things. I do, however, run. I run slowly, and I'm an athlete. I am plus sized and I'm an athlete. I actually get paid to be an athlete in the body that I'm in, which for many people is incredible. Incredible being unbelievable, as in not believable, to break it down for you, given our culture's obsession with bodies that are thin, chiseled, and fast. And this, of course, is not to diminish the efforts and accomplishments of incredible athletes who continue to show us the wide range of human potential. Many of us can only dream of having the ability and talents of folks like Simone Biles. Nia Dennis from UCLA. Did you see that video? She's incredible. Serena Williams. What is it? 23 Grand Slams and a billion other things. LeBron, Mahomes, Shalane Flanagan, and all of our D1, D2, and D3 athletes. These people are phenomenal. They show us what the human body can do, how fast we can go, how high we can jump, how coordinated we can be, how far we can throw, how long we can go. They also show us how collaborating and problem solving with others on a team, with the added benefit of each of our individual talents, can bring glory, joy, friendship, and community. So let it be said, I am not knocking athleticism. I love sports, I love athletics, and I love seeing what the human body can do, both on its own and with others. It's pretty incredible. But what about bodies that don't necessarily fit into this athletic paradigm? Where does everybody else go? Can we call ourselves athletes? Can we be athletic in bodies that don't look athletic? And I remember somebody had put, you have to look athletic, so there's a look, right? But I think that, and as a matter of fact, I know personally that we can. I know that we have the ability as intellectual beings to expand our perspective in reference to who we deem as athletes, and in a more general sense, who and what we can be despite our physical appearance and the expectations that others may have of our bodies, because there's always expectations that other people have of our bodies, right? I know that when people see me, they don't see athlete. In fact, they tell me so over and over again on my social media and in real life. They wonder how I can be fat and still do the things that I say I do. Because to many, a person that looks like me is probably not active. I don't even sweat in my Instagram pictures. That was a real comment, y'all. So I'll add that to the list of what an athlete is supposed to do, and that is sweat on social media. I have sponsors who don't have me as part of their team of athletes or ambassadors because I win things. I definitely don't win things. But I do represent a group of folks that perhaps don't fit the aspirational body type mold, or who aren't huge performers or super competitive or competitive at all. And I bring them a different community, a different demographic, and a broader view of the possibilities of a body. So I hope that when people see someone like me, that they are inspired to expand their idea of what a strong athletic body might look like. And I hope that they start to become accustomed to seeing, appreciating, and honoring differing types among the vast spectrum of body types. There are so many shapes and sizes. And if this happens, I hope that by default, you in the audience, you even become more comfortable and accepting of your own body, its unique design, and begin to, if you haven't already, appreciate and love all that it does for you. So I thought I'd tell you my own story to illustrate this idea and to share a little bit more about myself, to give you more context on why this is important. So, and Jamie has heard the story over and over again this week, and I'll tell it for one last time. I am, and I'm an educator, and I've been an educator for a long time. In 2008, I was working at a boarding school and in New Jersey, and on the weekends, I would go to Maryland, and I would teach piano lessons, guitar lessons, voice lessons, Spanish lessons, French lessons, and actually German lessons, right? I'm a trained singer. It's one of the things that I do. I'm a pianist, and I'm a Spanish teacher as well. Or I was a Spanish teacher. And so on the weekends, I would go teach my private students for a couple of hours and then drive back to Jersey and go back to work again, right? So I had a lot of jobs. I was also in grad school. I was taking care of my son, who at that point was 5, and like managing my husband's life as well as, you know, and I was teaching at a boarding school. Boarding school is a 24/7 operation. And so I was driving back one day from these gigs, and I started to have pain in my chest, on the left side of my chest. And I immediately thought I was having a heart attack. And so I pulled over, and after hyperventilating for a very long time and just trying to calm myself down and trying to figure out what to do, I decided to do the smart thing, which wasn't actually a smart thing. I kept driving. Right after I calmed myself down, and the pains were so insistent, and they just kept coming. They were very, very painful, and I kept hyperventilating and having to pull over on the highway and coming and going back on. And I was determined to get home. And as soon as I got home, I had my colleague, because remember, I lived where I worked, I lived on campus. I had my colleague drive me to the hospital, and where I was triaged immediately. You know, because when you say you have chest pains, they get you in immediately and they start doing tests on you. And I was poked and prodded and probed and this. I had EKGs and ECGs and every kind of test that you can imagine at this hospital. And so so finally, after 8 hours, the doctor comes in. He was very handsome, by the way. And he says, "Hey, Miss Valerio, we've got all your tests back. And so what we've determined is that you weren't actually having a heart attack because most of your labs are normal. You were having a panic attack." And I'm like, "A panic attack? What? Me? No, Black people don't have panic attacks. That's not even a thing." And so he looked at me like, "Ma'am, you were having a panic attack. Given what you've told me about your life, all your different jobs and this and that, you were having a panic attack. And so, but we'd really like you to see the cardiologist. So we're gonna schedule you an appointment for the cardiologist, and you'll take it from there." I go to the cardiologist a couple of days later, and this is a guy, you know, cardiologists speak the way that they need to speak to people. And so this is a guy that says to me, "Miss Valerio, how old is your son?" I said, "Oh, he's 5." And then he proceeds to say, "Do you want to see him grow up?" Okay. All right. I was like, "Do you have to say it like that?" Okay. Wow. But I knew what I had to do. I had to change my lifestyle. I had to reprioritize. He asked me to lose a couple of pounds. I was over 300 pounds at that point. And, but really he asked me to sleep. He's like, "Please sleep. You don't sleep." Right. So the next day I get back on my treadmill. I had always been an athlete from high school. I played field hockey and lacrosse, both varsity. And those had been the sports that led me to running. And I started running back then. And so I'd lost running as I got married, as I had a kid, as I had a very busy job. I wasn't really taking care of myself. So when I got back on that treadmill, ran a mile, it was horrible. It was horrible. Have you ever run a mile or try to do anything physical after you haven't done anything for a long time? That's exactly how it felt. So the next day I did it again. The following day I did it again. I got up to 5K, did some races, got up to 10K, did some more races, and got a bunch of friends to join me. And then I started training for a half marathon. And I took one of my girlfriends. I said, "Hey, let's go do a girlfriend's weekend down in Delaware." She didn't know that I had signed her up for a half marathon, but it was okay. She's over it. Actually, she's not over it because she says she was bamboozled. But she joined me, and then I became really enamored of being outside for a very long time. And then after that, another colleague says, "Hey, why don't you do a full marathon? Why don't you train for a full marathon? Let's do that together. Let's do the Marine Corps Marathon in DC," right? And I said, "That's a horrible idea. We're not going to do that." Then I signed up, right? So I ended up signing up and training for this full marathon, which is 26.2 miles. And then at the same time, I really wanted to share my story of how I was regaining health, because at this point I felt amazing. I felt so good. I slept well. I had so much energy. I had lost a couple of pounds, but really the thing that was most important to me was that I felt healthy again, right? I was still a fat woman. I still had rolls just like I do now, but I ran and it gave me such happiness and such health and such pride. So I started this blog called Fat Girl Running while I was training for this marathon, Fat Girl Running. And a bunch of my friends were like, "I don't know if you want to call it fat because, fat." I was like, "But I'm fat." Like, why would I call it something else? Maybe you should call it Fat to Fit. I was like, "But I am fit." At this point, I was running, I was playing tennis, I was doing marathon, and I was training for a marathon. I had done half marathons. I was doing trail running. I was hiking. I was playing tennis. I was swimming. I was doing everything. I was pretty fit. Maybe to some people I didn't look fit, but I was pretty fit. So, well, maybe you should just call it, a girl running. I was like, "But, I'm a fat girl and that's how I identify, right? And so I ended up calling it Fat Girl Running. Wrote in it about the things that people would say to me, many positive things, right? Oh, you go, girl. This is so great. I love to see you out there. Can I join you? This is so great that you're running. You look so happy. But then I would get other stuff like, maybe you should just go on a diet. Maybe you should just go back to tennis. It's better on your knees. By the way, it is not better on your knees. Maybe you should just swim. Maybe you should just go to the gym. And I'm like, I am going to the gym, and I have all of this health. I feel amazing, but people didn't see that by looking at my body, right? But anyway, so I wrote about those things. I wrote about the negative and the positive. And then one day I wrote about this, my experience at the doctor. And I wrote this thing about, don't you dare, I was in a mood, right? I was like, don't you dare ask me to lose weight without ever speaking to me, without knowing what it is I do. I was like, I run 5 times a week. I do this, I do that. I'm on a long-term trajectory of health and wellness. So don't say anything stupid like that without actually talking to me, right? And knowing me. And so that particular blog post got a lot of views, right? It didn't go viral, but it got 14,000 views, which was a lot back in 2015. So that got on the radar of Wall Street Journal. And then Wall Street Journal interviewed me, this woman by the name of Rachel Bachman. They interviewed me on the benefits of working out and having a fitness lifestyle, even if you're not losing weight. And I was like, that's my jam. I'd actually lost 70 pounds over 5 years. Right. But I'd plateaued, but I was still working out and I'm still loving it. Right. And so they did a whole thing on that, profiled me along with 2 other people. And then Runner's World came knocking shortly thereafter. Runner's World. Hey, we love your blog. I'm like, you're reading my blog too? Everybody reading my blog? We love your blog and we'd love to feature you in our magazine. And I knew Runner's World, right? The largest running magazine in the world. And I was like, but do you know I'm fat? Like I'm fat. Like I don't see any fat people in there unless they're like really fat and then really skinny. Like they have like a whole weight loss story. And they're like, this is exactly why we want to interview you. So that ended up being a 12-page feature in their magazine. My mom counted 12 pages, 2 full page photos of me. And it sparked a lot of conversation. Can you be fat and fit? Can you be an athlete and have the kind of body that Myrna has? It sparked all this conversation. A lot of it was positive. A lot of it was negative, right? NBC Nightly News came shortly thereafter. They came and spent a couple of days with me. They came to a race that I was doing. They really, really got deeply into my story. That blew my world apart. CNN came. I was on a thing with the CW. I got a book deal. I got sponsors. My very first sponsor was Merrell. And they do trail running shoes and hiking boots and other things. And they are my longest running sponsor right now. And then I had lots and lots of media opportunities and just lots of cool things, to travel opportunities, speaking opportunities, lots of collaborations. And so eventually I left teaching. I still consider myself a teacher because I do teach, just not in a classroom, right? And I just get to do really cool things. I've been invited to races all over the world. There's a race called the Marathon des Sables that is in Morocco. So they just kind of drop you off in Morocco somewhere after a 6-hour bus ride. And then they tell you to run for 6 days. I only had to do the first day because I went as media. A race called the Broken Arrow Sky Race that has ladders and snow and ropes to pull you up the mountain. A race in the Azores in Portugal, a race. And then for this year, hopefully it happens, I've been invited to one of the hardest and longest races in the world called the UTMB, Ultra Trail de Mont Blanc in Chamonix, France. And also, I don't want to leave this out, I also got to train Will Smith for his first half marathon. That is pretty cool to have hung out with Will Smith at his house where I use his bathrooms for 2 days and, joking with him and then training him to to run 13 miles, right? In Cuba in 3 weeks. And like I had his number, we were texting. I mean, these are the cool things that I get to do. And one of the things that went through my mind as I was training him was, he picked me. Like, I'm a coach, I know, but like, he could have gotten Bob Harper. He could have gotten that horrible woman, what's her name, Jillian from Biggest Loser. He could have gotten anyone, and he asked me to come out and train him and to put together a training program for him, and to come to his house and to talk through specifics in the training program, to go to a gym where, you know, he had to like go incognito and assess him on a treadmill and give him some exercises and tell him that, no, I wasn't really looking at your butt. I was just checking your gait. Right. So those are the cool things I get to do in the body that I have. Right. And so, but, you know, going back to the blog, until I started my blog, I didn't really give a whole lot of thought into like fitting some ideal of what a runner was. I ran, therefore I was a runner. Right. And for me, it was simply a story of reclaiming my health after having lost sight of the idea that my own health and vibrancy was just as vital as that of my son and husband's, right? So I shared honestly and openly in my blog about my own experiences as someone who had reclaimed health and wellness and was using running to continue along that path, right? You see, all throughout my childhood and through most of my adolescence, I had never felt or been pressured to change my body or to think about my body in terms of whatever the societal norms were. And I realized as I get older that this was an absolute gift, not to have absorbed these harmful messages about my body and its worth. So I come from an African-American and Latinx background, and in many cultures within the African diaspora, body image and lookism is values attached to the way that we look, whether in our height, our skin shade, our hair texture, our weight, etc. It was vastly different than that of mainstream culture. And when I say mainstream culture, I mean white American culture, although this is changing too. So even though there was little positive representation of my body type, my body size, and all kinds of media, I never really absorbed that message that I needed to change my body in order to fit into society, because that is not what I was surrounded with in terms of my family and friends growing up. So I had a family where we used to call ourselves big boned, and we were loud and still are very loud and rambunctious and proud of our bodies with all of their curves and idiosyncrasies. So we wore and still wear form-fitting and colorful clothing that expresses who we are as individuals. And that was the culture that I grew up in. I also had the fortune of attending an all-girls boarding school called the Masters School, which is co-ed now. And I had the gift of being pushed to try all different things, to try on new identities, to try sports, to try dance, archery, ballet, modern, jazz, African, theater. I became a musical theater person, classical music. I became an opera singer, science, history, math. I actually blossomed into the math nerd that I had always wanted to be when I was in high school, right? And in fact, at this particular school, on whose board I am right now, we had our field hockey tryouts. And I'd never played a sport before. I'd never gotten to be on a team, right? I wasn't popular enough in middle school. I wasn't in shape or whatever that meant. And we didn't have access to any of the other extracurricular teams because we were poor, right? So I go to the school. I was a scholarship student. It was a very fancy boarding school. And the very first day on campus, it is sports tryouts. I look over at the soccer field, and I hear they're running 10 loops of the field, and I'm like, I ain't doing that. Right? I didn't want to be inside. I grew up outside, right? I just wanted to be outside. I didn't want to play volleyball, and those girls were too tall for me anyway. I didn't want to do community service. I didn't want to try out for the dance team because I really didn't feel like I was a dancer. So there was field hockey right in front of me. And these girls were just like hanging around with their sticks, talking about their summers. And I said, I want to do that. So I head over to the field hockey field. And, we do some getting to know you games. Everyone is super sweet. I was very, very shy. I'm not shy anymore, but I was extremely shy and extremely introverted back then when I was 13 going on 14. So then the coach says, it was Coach Harrop, that was her name. Okay, everybody, we're going to do 6 loops of the field to warm up. And I was like, wait, what? I thought we were just like hanging around shooting the shit, right? So we do these 6 loops of the field. I am not wearing the right shoes. I have Keds on, probably with no tread. I had long pants on. It was August. It was September, and it was very hot that day and very humid. And definitely didn't have a sports bra on because I didn't know anything about sports bras. And then my hair, I had like crimped my hair. So it was like very 80s. This is in 1989, by the way. And I was wearing like all black. It was a vision, right? So we do this warm up. I come in penultimate, right? I can't breathe. I, had to walk a lot of the way. And then, I'm like, I don't know about this. And then we go right into, stretching and doing those dynamic warm-ups. I'm like, okay, maybe I can do this. And then the next thing was, we're going to run a timed mile because we got to see where everybody is in their mile time. And I was like, what? I didn't even know what a mile is. I mean, I knew what a mile was, right? But I didn't know. I had never run a mile. So I run this mile, walk most of it, come in penultimate again. And then practice starts, because that wasn't even practice. Practice is 2.5 hours long. We did, they used to be called suicides. I think they're called line drills now. We did something called an Indian run, which is not a good name for that, but it was this thing where the leader would run and then the person in the back would sprint. Does anyone know the name of that particular drill? And then we did dribbling drills. We're running up and down the field, we're doing sprinting, and then we do line drills again. And so I'm doing this line drill. You're supposed to sprint from the 0 yard to 25 yard and back, and then to the 50 yard and back, and then to 75 and back. And we also call it the Indian run, and then to the 100 and back. And we had 30 seconds to rest, and then we had to do it again. I was dying, right? Everybody was on their second run, and I was still like running back from the 50-yard line. I had asthma. I couldn't even do it, right? But I'm trying, I'm walking, and then I would sprint, and then I wouldn't be able to, and then I would walk, and then, wobble. And so I saw the coach running up to all the new girls, and I was like, oh no. She's like telling us like, if we can be on the team or if we can't be on the team, and oh no, like, and I'm dreading her coming to visit me. So I'm like, just trying to like stay in my lane, doing what I do. And then I see her bobbing up, and she's like all bobby and energetic, right? So she comes and says, hey, I couldn't talk, so I just nodded. Hey, this is hard, right? I'm like, yeah, I bet it is. She's like, you know what? But you're out here and you keep trying. I love it. Keep up the good work. And then she goes away, right? I'm like, whoa, she didn't yell at me. She didn't tell me I was too slow. She didn't tell me I was too fat. I was the biggest girl out there. She didn't tell me you can't be on the team because you don't know what you're doing. She said, keep up the good work. Good job. I know you're here because you want to be here, right? So wouldn't it be cool if we all had a coach like that? And I ended up staying on that team, and I learned how to run because there was so much running because of this incredible adult we had who inspired us to go longer, harder, no matter what bodies we were in. There were a lot of girls who had never done a sport before, or who had issues running, or who weren't super coordinated with their hockey sticks and the ball. But we were all allowed to stay on the team. It was a very small school, so you didn't really have a choice. But we won games. we practiced, we practiced on Saturdays, and we all wanted to be there, right? We loved the way that she believed in us, despite whatever bodies we were in. She encouraged us to work out and practice fitness as an integral part of our lifestyle, even if we weren't in school. It was a means of becoming a better athlete. It was a means of getting stronger. It was a means of having a better life. And so at the school, no one ever said anything disparaging or denigrating about our bodies. It was expected that we would do great things in the bodies and in the minds that we had. And so that was that. And that's the attitude I've always had about my body. And if you hear some noise, it's my son getting his dinner, right? And I'm about to talk about him. So I think about how I try to model this attitude with my son, who is now 17. That our bodies are really wonderful pieces of machinery. They're incredibly complex apparatuses, for lack of a better word, that have the ability to move, to stop, to heal themselves, to grow. I am recovering from knee surgery a couple of months ago, and my body feels so good now because my body has healed itself, right? It is such a great machine. So in fact, one time I said something under my breath this summer, disparaging my own body because I had become very dissatisfied with my belly, right? And so this boy heard me and remarked, he's like, but I thought you loved your body, because, that's all I talk about, right? When I'm giving speeches, when I'm giving workshops. And so I mumbled something that, I was frustrated, or I was frustrated with the fact that, it was COVID and that I was injured and I couldn't really work out the way I wanted to, and I was just not feeling comfortable in my body. People are listening, and they repeat our behaviors. They internalize and perpetuate our behaviors. They listen to the way that we talk to ourselves, our kids, our peers, our students, our athletes. They listen to and absorb what is being forced down their throats on TV and social media. That there's one kind of body that is acceptable. As I said, thin, muscular, and of course, the degree of muscularity depends on where you lie in the gender spectrum, right? According to societal norms, you should be preferably on the taller side. You should definitely not have a tummy unless you're pregnant, and then you should definitely get back to your pre-pregnancy size. Right after you have a baby. You should be coordinated. You should look a certain way when you do sports. You should be fast. You should sweat. Right. I had the pleasure and honor of starting my coaching career back in 2010 as a cross-country coach. And we weren't a competitive team. It was the same school in New Jersey that I worked at. Really, it was a running club, right? Where I got to take a bunch of girls, and they paid me running every day after school. Most of these girls had been told that they weren't enough. They weren't smart enough. They weren't coordinated enough. They weren't fast enough, or they were too skinny, or they weren't popular. And so the team captains wouldn't let them on the team, right? I had so much fun with these girls. We ran, we learned how, and I say we because we did everything together, right? We ran, we learned how to go further just for the sake of seeing our bodies, where our bodies could take us. We got stronger, we slept better, they became more confident in their classes and trusting of other adults and other students, and trusting of themselves and their bodies. And this translated into just confidence everywhere. And so what I hope is that by the end of our time together, you will start to maybe think about your body as the beautiful and incredible machine it is. And this is the gift that I want to pay forward in my own life and in my own work. And I'm so grateful to have access to a mostly positive and healthy body image. Though sometimes I do have my days. And in fact, today I put a post on Facebook, and I got top 10, Vermont's top 10 athletes of the year. And I don't like the picture that they chose. So, and I put this on my post. I said, not the most flattering picture, but hey, this is cool. So I'm going to change that, right? I'm going to hold myself accountable to the things that I preach and the things that I teach. And I'm going to change that because, my body is clearly okay the way it is, right? Clearly okay enough for them to name me as one of Vermont's top 10, right? So what I'd like to do is to define body image, because it's really important that we are on the same page, right? and it's very hard to consistently love your body while, you know, living in a society that constantly sends a message that we're not enough. Body is not enough. Your body is too much, you know, or that you should change your body for this or that reason, right? So body image, and this comes from the National Eating Disorders Association. Body image is defined as one's thoughts, perceptions, and attitudes about their physical appearance, your height, your shape, your weight, you know, how you feel about your body when you look in the mirror. That is what body image is. And so positive body image is a clear and true perception of your shape, seeing the various parts of your body as they are. You know, it is, it's also called body satisfaction, right? Or body positivity. And that involves feeling comfortable and confident in your body, accepting your natural body shape and size, and recognizing that physical appearances say very little about one's character and value as a person. And I will tell you that this guy on social media, and I try to delete negative comments as soon as they are up there, because then it, like, people start chiming in and it gets really messy. And this one guy said, well, you're clearly not doing the work because you're not sweating. You know, I don't see any pictures of you sweating. So you're not doing all the things that you say that you do. And actually, I was trolled really, really hard. I spoke about this earlier today when I was doing a race, and I was being filmed for this race, and somebody had looked up my work email, gotten in touch with me and said I was a fraud because I was pretending I was running. I was making fake running videos because there's no way that I can be a runner. I was too fat. You are obese. You are overweight. You're too fat, and you're trying to make people more fat, and you're trying to make people believe that fat is acceptable, right? And so he said all these awful things. And he attacked my character because I was fat. He attacked my body because I was fat, and he attacked what I said that I did, all the things that I said that I did, right? He attacked my integrity. So clearly this guy had a whole negative body image on, you know, about himself. And, you know, when we talk about negative body image, it's body dissatisfaction, and it involves feelings of shame, anxiety, and self-consciousness. And very often we project that onto other people. In fact, most of the time that we say something denigrating or disparaging about our own bodies, we project onto other people, because the expectations we have for our own bodies are the expectations we very often have for other people. So the way that we perceive our bodies, our body images, this shows up in the ways that we talk about ourselves, right? And other people. It affects our thoughts. It affects our sense of personal value, sense of personal value, how much we think we are worth, our actions, the way we perceive ourselves, the way we perceive others. Right? So a good question to think about when we're digging into the development of how did we get here with our own body image? You know, is to think about what our earliest memories are, like when we discovered we had a body, and when we discovered that it meant something, or that it looked a certain way, that it was a certain size, or that it was a certain color. You know, I have two different stories. When I was 8, I remember the exact clothes I was wearing. I was sitting on the toilet reading, because that's where I would hide, because I told you my family was really loud, and I was a reader. And so I would just go into the bathroom and read my books, because it was quieter, right? And I was wearing these red polyester pants, and I think they were dirty, and a tattered t-shirt. And I was reading, I looked down at my legs, and I was like, wow, my legs are big. And I think I had been noticing this in school as well. My legs, I said to myself, my legs are fat, but I didn't have any like feelings about it. I had just noticed. And I knew that I was bigger than and taller than most others in my class. And in second grade, I look at my class photo in second grade, and I was really thin. And that was when we were at our poorest in our family, and we had to like go to the pantries and get like government cheese and all that stuff. But things got better, and in third grade, I started growing again, and I was bigger and I was taller, and I was probably this tall, and I stopped growing when I was 16, right? So there's that one thing. And then the other time I got messages about my body, where I knew that my body had could have reactions to it was when it was my birthday in 5th grade. I had already experienced puberty in 5th grade, at the end of 5th grade. And so I like had breasts and I had hips. And so that's the way my body looked. And I would, very often get looks from men and stuff like that. But I got dressed up for my birthday. I really love the color red. I had a red shirt on and white jeans and then old lady shoes because I wore a size 11 and nobody made size 11 shoes for 5th graders, right? And so I showed up in a schoolyard before school, like I always did. And then all of a sudden, this group of boys started following me around, and they were boys from my class and from another class. And it didn't make me uncomfortable, but it felt weird, right? Just being the center of attention like that. And as an adult, I wonder where they learned that behavior, where they learned that reaction to the female body. So those are two of my experiences where, okay, I knew I had a body and I knew people had reactions to it and I knew how it looked and how it felt, right? So what I want you to think about, I'm going to use a chat for this. I want you to think about what are those early memories you have, maybe in a line or two. What is an early memory you have of knowing what kind of reactions your body garnered, or knowing that you had a body that people had reactions to, or knowing how it felt in relation to other people's bodies? We're going to use the chat for that. It's hard to kind of dig into that because that is where our initial body image comes from, right? From those early formative experiences. Please feel free to think about that for a couple of seconds in the chat. You should eat more. You're so tiny. Thank you, Sarah, for that. I know that when I went to Italy for the first time when I was in college, my Italian mother said that I was a big girl, so I needed to eat big meals. Right? So I needed more calories. Very different than over here in the States. And we're getting some contributions. I went to puberty at a young age. Boys my age would literally make a game of touching my breasts, right? Where do they learn that behavior? How to respond to a body? I'm a triplet and used to be the biggest out of my set. My mom would often bring it up, right? Wow. My best friend saying I was bigger than her, not in a bad way, but I guess you remember it for a reason. It stuck with you, right? When you're head taller than everybody else. I was also taller than a lot of boys. Again, I stopped growing when I was 16. People would say I needed to stop eating because my parents were fat, so they thought I was going to get fat too. And we don't realize how awful that is to say to people. People used to tell me that I had chicken legs, right? In high school, I lost a lot of weight, and I could see the difference in how people reacted to me. They probably acted more favorably and nicer. There's a lot of research about how people interact with people who are fat or who are deemed overweight. It's not good. Right? And then as we start losing weight, then people are nicer to us. They're more accommodating to us. I have a body that some consider unfeminine and also have short hair. So I've been told a lot that I was in the wrong bathroom, not believed to be a female. I was always thin and got comments about how small I was. And it took a long time to accept that I could not change that, right? The comments, those little like flyby comments that we say that we don't think are going to have an impact on somebody, like literally for the rest of their lives, they actually do, right? I remember being in preschool and having to do a mile preschool. Oh my goodness, I was bigger and taller than everybody, yet I made me feel so accomplished, but everyone around me shamed my body because my siblings were smaller than me. When older men started to notice and would make me uncomfortable, same thing happens to a lot of girls, right? Swim team at age 12, and we all had to wear swimsuits, and I noticed that the rest of the girls look thinner. There's so many of these instances and these experiences where, we just think we're telling people things. We don't even realize the vastly negative impact that we have, that our intentions and our actions have on people. Right? Wow. Thank you all for sharing those things. I know I didn't read them all, but I want to honor everybody and acknowledge that that you shared with us today. Thank you so much. And I actually, in one of the schools that I taught at, there was a wrestling team. And after spring break, when everybody was back, was the first night that we were back for spring break. Um, the well, maybe it was winter. It was winter break. We got back from winter break, and this wrestling coach sends an email to the entire school. Hey, everybody, the gym, the weight room is open. I know you've had, so we need to work off those Christmas calories and stuff. So come in, it's nice and warm. And all of the students got this message, all of the teachers got this message. And I dealt with it because it was part of my job to deal with stupidity coming from teachers. And when it came to body stuff, but he saw nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong about, you ate too much, you had too many calories, come and fix yourselves in our gym. These are the messages that people get every day, that kids get every day, that adults get every day. And so what I ask of you is, how do these messages show up in your own life today? Are you still perpetuating those things? Does your family perpetuate those things? I mean, we haven't had a whole lot of opportunity to be at the Thanksgiving table with a lot of people, or to be in community, or to go out to restaurants and stuff. But those things are still very, very prevalent in our lives. How do they show up in our lives specifically, right? And another question to ask is, are these messages something that you want and need to continue heeding? And how can we change that language, or change our language to make appreciation of our bodies and love of our bodies the norm in our lives, right? I encourage everybody to actively work on the language we use, both verbal and nonverbal. You eat that? With your eyes, you know how we do that? You eat another plate, have a second serving. Or I always get when I show up at a race, oh, wow. And Nicole, I want to say, you said that I feel like I have some issues with my body and I don't even know where that came from. It comes from society, because I'm skinny and no one has shamed me. It's so hard to deal with sometimes. Those messages are everywhere we look. It is it's on TV, it's on our social media, it's on these really, really unattainable body types and body shapes that we see represented every single day, right? Even if no one has explicitly said something to you or acted in a specific way to you, it's all around us. It is all around us, right? Thank you. And thank you, Amanda, for your story of being in the military and them saying you're fat and overweight because you're curvy. Wow. It's hard, y'all. We want to make sure that we're not passing down or passing across the table, or reinforcing these stigmatized and negative messages about our bodies to our children, to ourselves, to our peers, to our students, to future generations. I think we can do this, but it takes a little mindfulness and practice, and also intention, right? I love the idea of writing weekly affirmations and say in the mirror. I love that. Yeah, it doesn't help all the time, but when we get in the practice of saying loving things to ourselves, we also say loving things to other people as well, right? I would clean up your social media if you haven't already. You can. The beauty of social media is that we can curate it. We don't ever really have to see anything that is not in service to us, right? Take some time to do it and take some practice, but anything that makes you feel less than, images and that force you to compare yourself. We love comparing ourselves to other people, right? Comparing our lives, comparing our bodies, right? Get rid of that. We don't need it. Ask people how they wish to be called. I don't appreciate being called obese. Obese has a history of such negativity and such stigma for Black women. It's very damaging when I hear myself referred to as obese. I prefer fat, right? And also ask people how they want to be called gender-wise, right? That's why we have pronouns, right? Try your best not to make negative comments about other people's bodies. It's very hard because it's in our language, it's in the things that we do every day. And also making negative comments about your own body. And I have to tell myself that every single day, right? It's a very tall order and it's really, really hard. How about staying away from making comments about the food that people eat, right? It's not our job, you know, unless you're a nutritionist or dietitian, or I wouldn't even go as far as say doctor, because there's a lot of weight bias and stigma in the medical profession as well. You know, even positive commentary can be suspect and come from a really weird place. Like, oh my God, you look so good. Have you lost weight? I remember being very, very, very ill with the virus a couple of years ago, and I couldn't eat and I couldn't drink and I lost a lot of weight. And I kept hearing, oh my God, you look so great. I was like, yeah, but I was very, very ill and now I have arthritis in my hands because of that. It wasn't Lyme disease, it was something else, but thank you, right? And finally, always, actually not finally, speak up for yourself, speak up for your family, for your friends. It's really hard to do this because most of these comments come from our friends and family. Like, we can shut out as much social media as we can. We can try not to look at the advertising and media, but a lot of times this comes from people that we know and love, right? And then finally, I think that think about the impact that your words have on people. Your intentions might be to say, oh, you look great because you're skinnier, but what are you saying? That I shouldn't have been fat, and that or you're so pretty for a fat person. What does that mean? That is not a compliment. So always be aware of the impact that your words, actions, and attitudes have on people. And this is something I said in the anti-racism seminar. Yeah, I think things are changing. Thank goodness. Slowly but surely, for example, in 2019, I had the opportunity to model in an ad for Calvin Klein. It was a Calvin Klein activewear thing in Women's Health magazine, and that's how Nigel Barker found me. I remember one of the judges for America's Next Top Model, and I've got to work on some projects with him. I shot an ad for Merrell actually last year, and it went live a couple of days ago. And of course, there were like lots of fat phobic comments, some racist troll comments that are now deleted. One person said, did she wear the sneakers while she chased down the people she eats? Damn, that is a big girl. And the same guy went on to say, geez, you could find a hot white women, sick. This is nasty. You trying not to sell shoes, sick. This hurts. It hurts. And trust, it's very traumatizing every time I read a comment like this. It pains me and it makes me sad. I have a physiological response to it because people have thoughts of, as I said, over and over again, people have these same thoughts about themselves and they project it onto other bodies. Again, things are changing, but more often than not, I get these amazing comments. One of my former students was so proud and was like, that's my coach. What a great ad. This ad sings. Kudos to Merrell and the Renovator and the marketing team. What a stunning ad. You can feel the joyful energy. Nothing about my body, right? And from my mom, of course, I love those sneakers. And I had to write back. I had to DM her back. And I was like, Mom, you already have a pair, because I know what she was getting at. And then my aunt says, awesome and very pretty, one love. She's like very, very positive. And so next week I head out to Hawaii for a week on a running photo and video shoot for one of my most recent multi-year contracts with Lululemon, right? Lululemon, you guys remember Lululemon? It's a luxury athletic brand whose former CEO denounced women and Asian people, and then also said in so many words that his clothes were not meant for fat people, right? So that company has a new CEO, a new vision that includes a larger range of beings, in the spectrum of humanity, right? The whole thigh gap issue, ridiculous, right? So I think that if a multi-billion-dollar company can change, we can change. We can honor our bodies more in whatever shape or condition they're in. We can move in the ways that we as humans were meant to move. We can honor our bodies and honor other people as well. And I get to speak to you this week, to this audience. on considering expanding your view of what an athlete can look like, what a body can look like, and all the incredible things our bodies can do and are capable of. Life is short, as we are learning, right? Life is short. You know, this is a call to love on your body and to love on others' bodies, even if they don't fit the very sanitized, very stylized version of what society thinks they should be. And I'm going to leave you with a couple of words from my book, the last chapter, very last couple of paragraphs. I'm not supposed to be proud of my body and all it can do. How obnoxious of me to appear as though I matter. And I'm fat after all. That is lazy, slovenly, and not worthy of being loved, liked, or admired. Bottom line is I should simply cease to exist. But that's all wrong. I have a body that is amazing and strong. It's flexible and agile. It can carry me across 100 kilometers and up and down mountains. It has birthed a baby and survived fractures and breaks and multiple bouts of pneumonia. This body isn't meant to stagnate or cease moving. When we stop moving in mind, body, and spirit, we stop learning. And when we stop learning, we stop living. Therefore, when we stop moving, we stop living. We stop evolving toward being the humans we are destined to be. This body is fierce, beautiful, and unapologetic. It's meant to move through the world as it wishes, lifting, walking, and running, rolls and all, love handles, bouncy boobs, curves, tummy, butt, back fat, and all. I honor her by continuing to move along the spectrum of health and wellness, and in turn, she honors me by living vibrantly. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, y'all.
All right, thank you so much, Myrna. It would not be a Zoom call if I didn't forget to unmute myself, right? I want to thank you all so much for being here tonight. I know that, as Myrna said, I've heard her story over the last week a couple times, and every single time I'm taking away different tidbits, constantly being motivated and inspired. And something that somebody had said in the comments that I wanted to reiterate is taking that time to love yourself. I recently got this new app, and it kind of serves as a bullet journal. And one of the prompts was, have you told yourself you love yourself today? And I realized I had it. And I don't think I've ever said out loud to myself that I love you, right? And so I would encourage you all to kind of think through how much you love yourself and say it out loud, because it truly, I mean, it was a very different experience. But I do want to thank you all for being here and for being with us. And Myrna, thank you so much. And I know that if we were in person, people would be standing and clapping just based on the comments in the chat. And so
I'd be hugging.
I know, right? But this is recorded, so we will release it on our different platforms and make sure Myrna has it to utilize. And so I thank you all for being here. And please don't forget, follow Myrna on Instagram. I know I do, and she puts on a lot of really wonderful things. And so I appreciate you all so much. Stay safe and healthy. And thank you again, Myrna.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. I had a great time with y'all. All right, bye.
Bye, Myrna. Thank you.